Hi, it's Marin here, and I want to introduce Adrian Montgomery from EGLX, and this is a very exciting time to be talking about what we're going to talk about in this interview. You've had the NHL say, we're cutting the season, the NBA cutting the season, March Madness, the following that they have, end to the season. You look at the viewers on the chart right now, you see the expected viewership. This is an incredible opportunity for the esports world to really increase their market share. What's your take on the current situation that's literally unfolding?
Well, the first thing, as a sports fan like you are, it's unprecedented. But it's also an interesting time in the sense that, esports is the one sport that is borderless, that does not live on traditional television and in live arenas to the extent traditional sports does. So the home for esports is online, which is the safest place in the world to be right now. So we're cautiously optimistic that this is a transformational moment.
But we've seen the trends. Most people have thought that this is just a millennial thing. The trends are showing that it's not just a bunch of geeky guys in their mom's basement playing this, eating pepperoni pizza. This is a phenomenon that is cross-gender, and it's not just the millennials. We're seeing my generation, the Xers, now get into it. You're seeing the younger ones, and even the boomers are connecting into this. So this has been a huge education process for my subscribers to learn about this. But what I really want to get my viewers in is this huge data mine that you guys truly have. Explain, what does 1 billion unique visitors across the platform mean?
Well, I mean, when you talk about statistics and your fan base and what they look at, the fact of the matter is there are 2 billion Gen Zs in the world today, 25% of the world's population. Gaming is a core part of their identity as human beings. Gaming to them is what music was to you and me. It is how we express ourselves to the outside world. That is incredibly powerful. And so to be able to speak with hundreds of millions of Gen Zs through a shared love of one thing, being gaming, is a very, very powerful relationship that we have. And with that engagement comes access to understanding more about them than anyone else. And when you think about those statistics and you think about gaming as the new social network, it's not people in their basements not talking to everyone. They're making friends around the world in that basement.
That's right. And it's a new, this interconnection. It's to you and I, in our generation, most of my subscribers, what they look at as the resource investor, it seems absolutely insane to say your friends are online connecting, but that's exactly what it is. And it's completely normal for them to go to work, come home, log on, and hang out with their buddies virtually.
Yeah, my CFO, and by the way, this is the first company I've run where I'm the oldest person in the company. So my CFO just got married. He had 2 people at his wedding that he only ever met through Microsoft and Xbox. That's what's happening. This is how people are interacting and communicating. It's not me playing Street Fighter in a 7-Eleven by myself. This is a social revolution.
But the wild thing, when you look at the actual financials on this, these are not people that don't have money. These are not uneducated people. This has been a 12-year journey for me, because when I would teach calculus, I hired 2 of these really smart kids that I taught to come work for me, and that's what introduced me to the gaming world. And were these 17 and 18-year-old kids that I was teaching calculus to, and I'm like, what do you guys do on Friday nights? And it was kind of took me, when in our generation, you'd go with your buddies to a nightclub or, do whatever. These guys were totally different. And they would meet people. And one of the guys is how he met his wife, was online through this process. But let's talk about the actual, how do you convert these, users and these visitors? Because when you look at the ARPUs of your platform, and EGLX is what they own, it's complicated and new. It's novel to a lot of viewers. So let's walk through step by step, because that truly is the aha moment for anyone looking at the company.
What you're finding right now is, because of the statistics that you and I have just discussed, gaming is the most powerful form of entertainment. It is twice as big, believe it or not, as the movie industry and the music industry combined.
See, and that's something that people have a hard time grasping when we think about the microtransactions and actually owning the platform, the advertising, and maybe we have to step back and show the chart about, when people think about getting together and watching the World Cup or watching the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup playoffs. Online viewership has more than anything that in the real world has for what my generation or the baby boomers would think would be online gaming. So it's hard for them to grasp the size of this. Mm-hmm. But it's more than Hollywood, Bollywood, and the music industry combined.
Yeah, Hollywood's a $40 billion a year industry. Gaming is $150 billion a year, and it's growing at 35% a year. And then layer on the 25% of the world that are Gen Zs, and the 70% of those who think that gaming is a core component of how they express themselves in the world.
It's only growing.
This is only growing.
And more importantly, you can't go to watch a basketball game now or March Madness, so you're going to have an increase in market share. It's kind of like the most perfect setup in a horrible Orwellian way to think about it. It's almost like the ultimate vice stock that isn't even a vice.
No, and you talked about MLB canceling and NHL. One of the statistics that we say in the gaming industry, which is a little bit macabre, but it's true when you think about it. Every day, a Major League Baseball fan dies, and two esports fans are born.
Yeah.
Right? That is what's happening in the world. And you touched upon something earlier, Marin, that I want to hammer home, which is the assumption that these are penniless kids in their basement is not true. Average age of a gamer or an esports fan is 22, 23. Average household income, $70,000. Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, they would kill for that demographic. The Boston Red Sox and the LA Dodgers played in the World Series last year, and ratings were down 20%. Little League Baseball enrollment is down. And you look at what's going on in our world, and it's the exact opposite.
You're getting scholarships now for these esports. So, when we were kids, you're playing the Nintendo or the original Atari, your mom would yell at you and say, go do your homework or go play outside. Yeah. Now they're being encouraged and they're getting scholarships equivalent to, so you could be a, 5'2" superstar quarterback now, or you could be part of this super franchise now. So it's hard for people who aren't into it to gather, and there's almost this dichotomy of the opportunity, because I don't think most people have truly figured out how big of an opportunity this is.
No, I agree with you, and I think where you were heading with this is a message from you to your investors, which is, tell your kids to stop studying and play more video games.
So when we first met, we realized that we had a friend in common, and you've had an incredibly successful business career. So what brought you into this sector, and why are you doing this?
So I had the privilege of working for the Aquilini family, as you know, and you know them quite well. And I was the head of the sports and entertainment division of Aquilini, which was an
like a fun job.
Incredible job. Back when we had events at the arena, I didn't have to pay for the tickets, so it was fantastic. But one of the things when you run a company like that and you own an arena, one of the best ways to overperform your budget is to put more events in the arena in which you own. And so we were very aggressive about that, and I think all Vancouverites should thank the Aquilinis for being so aggressive in getting so many quality shows at Rogers Arena. We had an opportunity to host the world's largest esports tournament, and we did not know anything about esports. It was the Dota 2 International. They needed the building for 12 days, which is a no-no.
Yeah.
Think about how many tours you might pass up when you've blocked a building calendar for 12 days, but we took a chance on it.
And let's for the viewer, our viewers will know the sevens, all the rugby, and it's a big event. Dota was bigger than that, to really put it into perspective.
So when we were doing the site tour, I asked the young person who was behaving as if he was in charge of the Super Bowl to put him in his place. I said, what's the prize purse for this tournament? I thought that was my...
So you're thinking 25 grand or something?
Something like that. And he looked at me and he told me it was $32 million. And I said, that can't be true because the US Open or the Masters is 11. And he said, yeah, what's your point? $33 million purse. Yeah. Biggest event in the world. And they needed the building for 6 days. Now the Rolling Stones, Lady Gaga, they'd have trouble selling out the building 3 nights instead of 6. These guys sent one tweet out and they sold the building out in an hour. And 6 months later when the tournament came, noise records were set, merchandise sales records were set, concession sales records were set. And I always tell the joke that we set concession sales records, but in the entire 6-day tournament, the building sold 3 beers and I bought 2 of them. Sadly, the only downside to gamers is they're not heavy. This isn't a Motley Crue concert. They're not heavy drinkers, but no one eats more hot dogs, so it all worked out. But it was just the city became overrun. You'll remember it. You live here. City became overrun with passionate gamers lining up for hours. And when you work for a great entrepreneurial family and you know them, within a month we were all in because we saw the trends. And that's what great entrepreneurial families like the Aquilinis do, is they see trends before other people.
Let's compare, and we're not trying to say here, and nor am I trying to say that the market share, you're going to get comparable ARPUs to say, Pinterest or anyone. But when you look about owning the platform and really the business opportunity of EGLX, because it is kind of a complicated business for someone looking at it, because it's kind of like owning a bunch of oil wells here, copper producing mine, a gold mine, if you look at it from a resource standpoint. And these are people that are still trying to get their heads over understanding that this is all online, and you don't like throw a football and you're not like, it's a totally different mindset for the viewer. So let's talk about the revenue and how will you monetize this incredible opportunity?
We're very fortunate in terms of how we've built out our suite of assets. We have a number of revenue generating and profit making paths. And we've done that by design. And ultimately, as old sports and entertainment people, it all is rooted under a very simple premise, which is aggregate the biggest fan base that you can.
Yeah, which you've already done.
And turn that fan base into a customer base. Yep. Simple to explain, hard to execute.
And I want to jump in on something too, because I'm just speaking from the guys in my office. There's one specific that in 2008, he's been with me for now over 14 years. It is part of, like you said, his identity, and I can't emphasize this enough. When the economy's down, he's probably not going to go out to Vegas with his buddies, but they're going to play more games, and they're going to do more microtransactions, and it's like a doubling down to their lifestyle. And it's not like you're not going to go to the Euro Cup in Europe this year with your buddies because there's Corona and all that. This is a real business that you don't have to sit in a movie theater to get the revenue. You're not selling that. So let's give my viewers specific revenue so they can truly understand and visualize what type of metrics we're looking at.
So the most lucrative demographic for an advertiser is the Gen Z demographic. The hardest to reach demographic now is the Gen Z demographic. They don't consume content
media.
the same way that we did. They won't
pay
huddle
for
around
content.
and watch
That's right.
Seinfeld 80 million strong.
That's right.
And make an advertiser's job easy. So they're fickle, they're hard to reach, they're elusive, but they are a gold mine for advertisers. Imagine if in that difficult exercise of finding them, you knew how to communicate with 150, 200 million of them through one shared passion, being gaming. That is the door to Hogwarts for this demographic, and that is what we do. We communicate with them through a shared love of gaming. So when you have access to 200 million of the world's most lucrative, elusive demographic, and you can communicate with them through one channel, you have off the top an incredible opportunity to monetize through ad sales. And you can command significant advertising rates because of what we've been talking about. So that's point number one.
And you own these platforms. It's not like
Correct.
You're selling ad space and you're the middleman behind the Google wall. This is yours.
Correct.
It's hundreds of millions of people using your platforms.
And again, what we've done on purpose is we've built a company around hardcore gamers, not casual gamers. Our viewers come back to us 25, 26 times a month, where for IGN or GameSpot or any of our competitors, they come back 5, 6 times a month. Twitch, owned by Amazon, average recurrence, 5, 6 times a month. Our guys come back 25 times a month. So very, very strong base to sell ads and to monetize. Point number one. Point number two, and your fan base would understand this and your followers would understand this. We all have something on our credit card that would indicate that we're going to pay extra for content that we want, right? Whether it's Netflix or what have you. And so for us, we have an opportunity to sell subscriptions to 200 million people or a subset thereof. We don't want to erect paywalls and complicate things, but the freemium models we can offer. We own a website called The Sims Resource, which is a fan site dedicated to The Sims. There are 80,000 people that pay us $4 a month every single month for a VIP content offering. So that's a recurring revenue stream. That's a high margin revenue stream.
And that's reoccurring.
It's got incredibly low churn, high retention. So you've got ad sales as a revenue path. You've got subscription offerings as a revenue path. You have sponsorship of your esports teams. People want to get into gaming. If you're Gillette, if you're Procter & Gamble, if you're Kellogg's, you can't ignore gaming.
You're not starting with that, 1 million friends. You've hundreds of millions of friends.
Correct. And so ad sales, sponsorship sales, subscription offerings, the Aquilinis know well and others, the appreciation in value of the teams that we own. In North America, there's been a one-way trend for all sports, including MLS, MLB, the Vancouver Whitecaps. Yeah, everyone hears the story in Vancouver about how hundreds of thousands of people know that the Vancouver Whitecaps at some point could have been bought for $2 million. You probably had a chance to buy them for a couple $1 million, given your network. And now they're worth a couple $100 million.
Kerfoot's a tough guy to deal with.
No comment. But again, so you've got, that is another revenue stream. Mergers and acquisitions.
And this is an opportunity for someone to kind of not look at it as an index, but I've kind of compared EGLX to kind of, I don't need to know what the next hot game is. I don't need to know what the next hot gold mine is. It's kind of like a royalty company built in with a miner, with an exploration company. It's kind of like a vertically integrated gaming. If you want exposure to the esports sector, you can just buy this. It's run by competent people who have skin in the game, who've paid more than the share price is trading now, and you have liquidity in the market if you need to get out. It's not some private company that you're hoping will go public in 5 or 10 years, right? So from that standpoint, what about exit? What is the end game here in 5 years for EGLX? Is it someone like Facebook who's losing that market share that needs to maybe backfill their share price, buying something like this out to capture that market, to hopefully expose them to other products? What is the end product here, or end result in your, I know it's still early days, but someone like me is always looking, okay, what are the catalysts here down the road?
It's a great question. I think that what we've just touched upon are the revenue generating possibilities.
Which is very rare for essentially such a young company to have such large revenue generating assets.
I agree. But underneath those revenue and monetization paths is something else that we're investing in, which is, and you touched upon this off the top, we are going to be committed over the next couple of years to investing in data, analytics, and otherwise to know more about those 200 million Gen Z gamers than anyone else.
And what they want, and what they need.
And what they like, and where they like to shop.
And that's really what, we're going to bring up the chart again of the ARPUs. When you look at your ARPU rate versus per user versus anyone else, that is the lowest hanging fruit from a shareholder standpoint for price appreciation that you can use. That is something so easily monetized because you guys have just started. This is kind of like this incredible list that hasn't been sold anything yet, essentially.
No, agreed. So when you have that knowledge of such a massive cohort of, as we said, the world's most lucrative and elusive demographic, then your exit paths become more and more numerous. You know, you talked about a Facebook. You look at Silicon Valley and private equity and other people and you're touching upon something which is really important, and you've experienced this, you know, in a career. You've seen cable companies, and apart from the revenue side, apart from the profitability and cash flow, cable companies have always been valued on how many subscribers they have. So forget our revenue and forget. Our competitors in the US are valued on one metric, which is how many Gen Zs do you talk to, and let's place a value on that.
Yep.
So again, when you have 200 million of them that you engage with in a recurring fashion, in an authentic fashion, you have a tremendous valuation upside, and you have companies like the Netflixes and the Disneys and the Facebooks that will eventually take notice of it.
And I think, you know, you're listed in the Canadian end and on one of the alternate US exchanges, but I think a natural evolution is as you guys start capitalizing on the data analytics and monetizing what you already own, once you get onto the big board, I could see you within 24 months being on the NASDAQ, then you're exposed to a whole new investor base. And tell me if you think I'm on the ball here or not, but most importantly is there's no other product like this out there that has this array of assets, right?
There's no one who's consciously, we always say right off the top.
This is waterfront property for the esports world.
Yes. We're saying to galvanize us as a business, to make us disciplined, to make us focused, we're building the world's largest network of communities for gamers and esports fans. So we're about that waterfront. If you're an authentic community, we want to engage with you, we want to own you. Whether an event is a community, a big streamer like Ninja who has millions and millions of followers, we think of him as a community. And so we want to have as many touch points and access points to Gen Zs who love gamers. And so you're quite right in the sense that that is waterfront property. And we're at an interesting moment in time where we have enough credibility to take advantage of a waterfront buying spree.
You know, it's wild when we were talking about the story about how well-known, famous celebrities, professional athletes, turned into giddy children with some of your partners. And you're just sitting there going, but you're a famous athlete, but yet this is the mindset change of the professional athletes today look at these esports stars as superstars. It's almost something very hard for an older generation to kind of comprehend. If you want to share that story, which I thought was phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's partly because we forget how young these athletes are.
That's the other
right?
issue. We're getting old.
Yes, yeah, we are. So we're very privileged to have a number of athletes and superstar athletes as shareholders and people who are involved with Enthusiast and Luminosity. One of whom, Richard Sherman, is a superstar for the San Francisco 49ers, won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. But this guy has achieved a level of fame. Like, I think two big measuring sticks for being famous in America is, have they parodied you on Saturday Night Live, and have you been a character on The Simpsons? And Sherman has managed both of those feats. Sherman is a legitimate superstar. And when we had an opportunity to get him involved in the business, we had a conference call with him, and we said, look, and I said, look, let me tell you a little bit about Luminosity. And he cut me off and he said, Adrian, I know exactly everything there is to know about Luminosity. I'm a huge fan of Luminosity. Why do you think I'd be talking to you if, like, when can I meet your Call of Duty team? Can I talk to them? Can they teach me? Like, he was just a kid on Christmas. And, you know, he's a fan. He says, look, after a tough day at practice, I lock myself in my room, I mic up, and I play Call of Duty for 3 hours. That's how I stay level. It's his passion.
Yeah. And the irony of this is it's way for a financial analyst in my office to connect with anyone else in the world, and they're doing this across the board. They create their teams and they run with this, and it becomes their lifestyle. It truly is a lifestyle, you know. So I think it's a growing industry. The last thing I want to kind of touch in is looking at the growth of the year over year in the advertising in the esports. We're just starting in this, but you're seeing incredible 30%, 35% year over year growth. Do you see anything stopping that, or looking at what's going on globally, fast tracking and accelerating that? Because people have like Trump just shut down the US economy to Europe. China shut down to everyone. Is this the only one of the few games left in town for the global economy to really sell product to?
I honestly believe we're at the front end of this revolution in terms of advertisers, gaming. I don't think anything is going to slow it down because it's been so underrepresented. You know, the great opportunity for our shareholders is the fact that until a few months ago, chief marketing officers age discriminated. They just said, I don't understand this. I don't get it. And I remember one of the funnier exchanges with an investor in the US who ran a hedge fund. He said, I don't understand why anyone would watch another person play video games. And you know, his underlings sort of laughed. And I said, well, let's take an inventory of what we do watch other people do. My wife watches Martha Stewart baste a turkey for 4 hours. My niece watches someone sell real estate in Los Angeles. My dad watches Emerald saute mushrooms. Why is it so hard for you to believe someone would watch someone else play video games? That was 6 months ago. Now, if you're a CMO of Kellogg's and you're not doing something in gaming and esports, guess what? You're getting fired. And so what that means is you're going to see advertising budgets aren't going to grow. We don't need to make a bigger ad spend at Kellogg's. There's going to be a greater and greater shift.
Market share.
From spending on traditional, spending at events, moving more and more and more into gaming. And look, we all hope for a speedy conclusion to what we're going through in the world right now. But if the net conclusion for the next foreseeable future is people are going to be locked inside, guess where...
It's a good alternate reality.
Guess who's going to benefit from that? Right? And
it's going to increase market share. You know,
correct.
Like I've got friends who are starting to do it, and you're like, wow, you know, it's a transition.
Correct.
So this is a starter. There's going to be a large detailed report that comes out. Use this as a starting base. You get to see who Adrian is. Go to their website, contact the company, look at the information, and educate yourself. Adrian, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, Marin.